Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Untapped Podcast. My name is Jacob Gabel.
And my name is Jacob Wurtz, guys. Welcome to episode 162 of the Untapped Podcast. If this is your first time joining us, first of all, thank you. We are thrilled to have you here with us. We actually have 5 main formats of our show. So first, we have Forging Fortitude episodes. Now, in these episodes, we cover the mental side of our brand. In these ones, we go over our anecdotal experiences with things like mindset and mentality. We then pass on tips and advice to you guys to then apply to your own lives. Next, we have Physical Vitality episodes. Now, in these episodes, we cover the physical side of our brand. So in these ones, we get to showcase our expertise because you have 2 certified personal trainers here. In these, we cover everything to do with our fully custom Untapped training app and what we offer through that. So if you guys have any questions or curiosities about what we can do for you, please reach out to us. We also go over everything to do with the gym, workouts, nutrition, diet, supplements, mental toughness programs like 75 Hard. And then sometimes we will take trending articles or topics within the fitness industry and give our thoughts and opinions on those. Guys, these Physical Vitality episodes are full of free game. I can't stress that enough. So make sure you pay attention.
Physical Vitality content's going to keep going up in the right direction. Let's just say that.
Our last episode and our last YouTube exclusive.
Yeah, we're going to be prioritizing that big time.
Definitely.
Because that's part of that personal excellence thing people talk about and whatnot, for sure. But guys, on to our third format. Our third format is our breaking news format. That is when we sit down and touch on current events, current articles going on in today's world. That is what we have for you today. Keep in mind, a lot of this content around the internet is very doom and gloom. We are not here to do that. We are here to provide solutions and talk about how we can go in the right directions with these events happening in the world and the United States, for that matter. Now, on to our fourth format. That is our Knights Table format. It is a masculinity-based format. It is when we sit down and touch on things like toxic masculinity, if it's real, what it really is, fatherhood, the impact it's had on our lives, and then also male-based topics in general and how important men are to the future of this country. Now, keep in mind, I'm 26. Wurtz is 26. Our producer, Mitch, is 24. Because of that reason, we are not coming to you as some all put together perfect man. The only perfect man to ever walk this earth is Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for us. Now, on to our fifth format. Our fifth format is our guest format. We sit down with entrepreneurs, fitness professionals, athletes, doctors, somebody with a great story, basically anybody who brings you value of some sort. We're going to sit down, we're going to get to know them and learn a lot from them. You are also going to glean a lot from those episodes as well. Our last thing to introduce is our producer and my brother, Mitchell Gabel.
What's going on?
What's up, Mitch?
Not much.
You're sitting kind of low over there, buddy.
Yeah.
Low rider.
Low rider.
How do you feel about the move, Mill?
Too heavy. Great.
Feel set in, ready to go. Let's do it.
For context,
Yes.
Mitchell moved out of the condo that we are currently in.
Mm-hmm.
So he is actually coming to us live from the moon tonight.
Mm.
That is where he is at.
Interesting.
But we green screened the background to look the same.
Just like they did with the moon landing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The real moon landing.
The real moon landing.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So we miss you. We miss you, Mitch. You're a long way away.
Good.
Dude, I feel weird because I posted that picture on my story of the chair.
Peak male. What'd
Yeah,
you say?
the peak male workspace.
Workspace,
That's what I said,
yeah.
And it was just a chair and literally a
stool, right?
stool holding up my laptop, and that was my whole workspace
In front of the TV.
Yeah, and that was it until I got new furniture and stuff like that. And it's like, honestly, it's weird being here by myself again because I was here for a little bit because I probably lived here for a few months by myself. Then Sam moved in for a little bit. Then he moved out, and I was here like 6 to 8 months by myself.
It was a while.
That was weird.
Yeah.
That was. I remember like looking back and like sitting here by myself, and I'm like, this is odd being in a building by yourself right now.
Mitch, what do you think he does when he lives here by himself? Do you think he just stands there and stares at the wall?
No, he eats food.
No.
Food's a big portion of it. That's very true. Honestly, I'm not going to sit here and deny that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that does happen for
There's
sure.
crumbs on him, and he looks like
Crumbs on him.
What is that movie that was depicting that fat guy, the whale? What was the dude with the fat suit on? Oh man,
What?
I can't remember the name.
You're not talking about the Wolverine with the blob,
No,
are you?
no.
Okay.
Well, the Blob's pretty good depiction of him too. I mean,
Oh, man.
Grimace.
Mitchell's just trying to get me to pull up edits on these parts.
You're
That's all he's trying to do right now.
right.
Grimace is funny too. Oh, man. So what are we talking about today?
Well, I think first we gotta
Oh, yeah, you're right.
acknowledge
Never mind.
that
Never mind. Yep.
we just had a sick weekend So we're recording this on Tuesday the 10th.
Very small party with a couple friends.
Tiny barbecue, as they say. Tiny
It's pretty
barbecue.
funny that they lean into that a little bit.
Yeah,
I like that.
So again, we are recording this on Tuesday, June 10th, which actually does matter for the actual topic as well, just for context of the situation we're going to cover. But we had Summer Smash this past weekend, June 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Yep,
I believe
correct.
it was.
Mm-hmm.
My first year going, your second year going. And man, it was freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking awesome. We got to do a lot of cool things, talk to a lot of cool people, reconnect with a lot of people we haven't seen in a long time. Connor, former Untapped podcast guest, by the way, him and his wife were in town. So it was great to see them. But I mean, at this point, it's like hard to describe it any other way that probably everyone has seen and heard by now, whether that's from one or both of us or somewhere else. But great weekend.
Yeah, and like I told you, the ticket price is like a little bit catch off guard, but then you get there and you realize how much is included in it.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this makes sense.
Definitely.
Like that adds up big time for
yeah.
sure. But it was good. I mean, we got to talk to people that we hadn't talked to before, but also people we've built relationships with and continue to build on those relationships with. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then, the whole Saturday night, we got to hang with the boys.
Yeah,
and
right.
just party the whole time
Right.
for Lil Jon, T-Pain, and 2 friends.
Yeah.
Just a crazy lineup.
It was awesome, man. And just super grateful that, for me anyway, like that I was finally able to make it because, the last couple of years there was some frustration involved with reasons I wasn't able to go and whatever. But no, super grateful that we all got to do it together, be there together, and I can't wait for next year. Can't wait for next year.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed, brother.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, like I said earlier, we do have episode 162, and then like Gabel said, we have a breaking news episode. I feel like it's been a bit since we've done a breaking news.
It has been.
Because like you mentioned, we've been really focused on the physical vitality stuff.
A lot of the breaking news stuff has been the same.
It's just the same.
Too, over and over again.
Yeah.
And truthfully, if you want to see that, guys, like I do post a lot on X a lot of the time. So if you do want to see current event stuff, I post a lot on there. I'll go on the Untapped account and post on there sometimes too.
Sure.
Usually Wurtz is just retweeting, adding some context to that, replying to that type of stuff. So we have conversations on there a lot about current events if you do want to see that stuff. But for the most part, our episodes you see a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
So with breaking news.
Which is why we don't always cover them because it's like, how much can you talk about the same stuff, But the hot thing going on right now, again, we're recording Tuesday, June 10th. So by the time you guys are hearing this situation will be different. There's no doubt. Because it seems to kind of change every day and the idiots say different things every day and blah, blah, blah. But it's the LA riots. And this is the 5th day, I believe, of the riots going on out there in LA. And it's like, dude, every 2 to 3 months, there's something new going on in LA, which isn't surprising because of how poorly ran that state is. We know that.
Especially that city.
And especially the city, of course. But you had the fires going on forever, and now you got the riots. I feel like there was something maybe in between these things. But
well, I mean, transgender athletes still trying to compete and all that stuff.
Course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, hey, Trump, I thought we ended that, dude.
Yeah.
It's still happening.
And he'll just call it out, and that's about all that happens outside of it. He'll threaten to take funding away or something like that. And, it's like, you actually need to follow through with a lot of these things.
Yeah.
But anyways.
I thought that was one of the day one executive orders that men compete in men's sports and women compete in women's sports. But like you just said, we still have these transgender athletes in sports. There was just one. I don't remember what state it was, but it was a softball team, a high school softball team. One state.
Yes.
Because their pitcher was a dude playing as a girl.
Just throwing gas.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, gas compared to what girls see.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because obviously if he could have competed with men, then he would have competed against men.
Right. Right.
He obviously couldn't do that. So
clearly. So he decided to throw underhand. But I mean, it's a perfect example. It's like it's literally still happening, and that's pretty frustrating. I think LA is just a good example of a city that's meant to demoralize us too, because it really is a great, like, somebody actually broke this down really well. California in general, just to add context to this whole thing, guys, California in general is a very cool state. Like, I haven't had the privilege of going there, but you've had the privilege of going to San Diego. My father's had the privilege of traveling there a lot for work. We know people that used to live there, all that stuff. So the state's beautiful, and San Francisco is well known for its tech innovations. It's known for the Golden Gate Bridge and the history there and all that stuff. Right.
It's known for, the gold rush and all that stuff that comes along with
it. You got a ton of sports teams out there as well.
Sports are a huge deal. Lakers are a huge deal out there. Clippers.
We're talking about some iconic sports franchises with the Dodgers, the Clippers, the Lakers, like you just mentioned.
100%.
I mean, my goodness.
So it's known for a lot of good things. Is the point to add to this, and I feel like that's why it's been one of the most successful states in history when it comes to the United States. I would argue too, because of all these things that happen when the Western, what do you call it?
Like civilization?
Yeah, the Western like conquering of that area, and adding to our country at that point in time occurred. It's been very much so filled and populated with people that innovate.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. That was a big deal for California and just the West in general. Obviously you think of Lewis and Clark and whatnot going through, St. Louis Arch and whatnot is a big deal with that gateway to the West, that type of thing. So to add context to that, I think that's why it's such a shit show there a lot of times, because there's absolutely purposeful aspects that are meant to demoralize us because it's such a cool area. And it's like, man, this sucks. Like, I wish we could have this area back and all this stuff. And, and now you see riots happening and whatnot, and people waving Mexican flags and all this stuff happening there and burning stuff down, throwing, there's a police officer that get hit in the head by a rock on one video, which is full blown deadly assault, by the way. And they didn't shoot him, which is a whole nother conversation. But, I think in a lot of ways, like, it really is that way. And then, you see Gavin Newsom after the election try to act more moderate.
Right.
He was talking about how his sons like to do like man stuff and whatnot and all that stuff. And he tried to like relate to young voters and all this stuff. And the Democrats still are trying to relate to young male voters. And California does a horrible job of it because all their policies are something young men do not want.
No.
At all. Our generation has no interest in it. And we're like the most right-wing generation of all time, for that matter, which is pretty cool. And dude, it's pretty infuriating because like we said, we keep talking on the same stuff. We talk on the same subjects and nothing really happens. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we've allowed our government and the leadership in local, state, and even at federal level, all of it, to become so bloated that nothing gets done.
Right.
Like nothing actually gets done by voting anymore.
Right.
You don't make any progress by just going to the ballot box anymore.
Right.
The sad part is.
And it's sometimes not even that nothing gets done, because there are things that are being done under the current administration that they said were going to happen. But it's more so about the speed of the things and the efficiency of those things happening. For a few days there, the hottest thing was that Elon and Trump were beefing. And it's like, whether that's real or not, that could be a different episode, which the time's, I would say, passed for that, and that's fine.
I just don't have any interest in talking about that.
I really don't either, quite honestly, because I don't think it was real. I truly don't. I think it was a way to get.
I don't know what it was, because Elon was showing support for him during the riots now too on X. I don't know if you saw that.
Showing support for Trump.
Showing for Trump.
I did not see that.
Yeah. So he was again, like, they were back, kind of touching tips, so to speak, boys. And I guess like whatever homies again or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But like that was a news topic for a couple of days, and it's like, why is this what's most important to be talking about right now? Why is the right not calling out the speed of deportations? Why is that not happening? Why is the right, whether it's the citizens or the politicians on the right, not calling out? Well, we just were saying, hey, there are still trans athletes competing in these sports and dominating in the opposite sex sport.
And they might be, again, as simple as calling it out. They might tweet about it or something like that.
Correct.
Or say something about it.
Correct.
And that's the extent of where it goes. That's it.
Yeah.
They just talk about it.
Right.
It's like, that doesn't help anybody.
Well, and
you
that's
want to
what,
see things done.
And that's what most of I'm sure it's on the left too. I just don't see that stuff. But that's what most of these right-wing influencers do.
I think it's primarily right-wing.
Yeah,
I do. I think left wing, actually, when they stick to their guns, they stick to their guns.
They do.
That's one thing. They get shit done. They don't care about how we think about it,
right,
at all.
And
which is exactly what we should be doing, but we are not doing it.
And they're also not afraid to fund protests and riots. They're not afraid to burn cities down. They're not afraid to lock citizens in their houses with COVID and all stuff. Like, they do take action. It's typically not good action. Especially for those of us that are on the receiving end of that, which would be all of us U.S. citizens. Doesn't matter who you voted for, you're on the receiving end of that.
Correct.
There was somewhere else I was going to go, but I don't remember what it was.
I think you were talking about funding too, like, to add context, like, that is 100% a possibility at all of these. Because what's very interesting, so I know somebody close to me where they were very close to the Ferguson riots in 2014 when all that happened and went down here in Missouri. The OG of the riot central in our country, basically.
The birth of it.
Essentially, yeah. Whether it was Black Lives Matter bullshit or whether it was now ICE raids and stuff like that, or them being mad about that, about very legal law enforcement. But anyways, I know somebody very close to that, and that was very close and almost on scene, essentially, around that. And it was basically, they said that, you know, all the businesses were looted around that area. They were torn down, burned down. There was also very weird things where they would see buses showing up. Same thing in Minneapolis. There was reports of bricks showing up and stuff like that. Wisconsin, when Kyle Rittenhouse stuff happened, they had reports of bricks showing up at these locations.
Yeah, we're talking like pallets of bricks. Pallets
of bricks, that type of stuff. Weird, just people being bussed in. That also doesn't add up, because you're like, who is shuttling protesters in? Like, why aren't they driving themselves?
That had IDs for other states.
IDs for other states is another one too. So that was a whole interesting thing. And Ferguson was a start of this. Like, that we didn't really know was funded at this point in time, but this person is aware that there was like very questionable stuff around it. So that's just a good starting point around these riots, to where like it's not all organic. It's not just like literally like 200,000 of these people just decided to get on the same page and go.
Right.
Most of them are too low IQ to do that anyways.
Correct.
But if they're told to go somewhere, they'll be a good boy for daddy and go do that. Go riot and be an anti-fascist or whatever the hell that means.
Right.
Something like that. So the funding's key. A lot of the times, obviously, you see Soros be the one that's linked to this in a lot of ways. Both him and his son, George and Alex, who Alex, I think, runs most of the operations of his business now and all this stuff.
Right.
And, you know, they're linked to funding soft on crime prosecutors in almost every city, including St. Louis, for that matter.
What was her name? She's not in there anymore.
You're going to make me think. I forgot her name. I was thinking about that too. I couldn't remember her name to save my life. Kim Gardner. Kim Gardner. There we go. Yep. Good call.
Yep.
But basically, you know, these criminals would literally, like, there was incidents where like somebody would run over somebody with a car and then they would get out in 2 days. And it's
sometimes with the 2 days.
Like,
it could be a matter of hours.
Same thing, even down with the Carmelo Anthony situation down in Texas.
Yeah.
You know, that's another good example to where he was let out on house arrest. There's no way in hell, after somebody stabs another person in the chest, should they be let out on bond ever.
Correct.
They should be zero bond, and they should be kept in chains, essentially, in their cell and like spoon fed, basically. And that's about it. I mean, seriously, like they should be straightjacketed essentially at that point.
One spoonful of applesauce a day.
Yeah, literally. That's it. Just keep them alive by
27 calories.
Shit. They could just starve them to death. Yeah, I guess that's one way to do it. But again, like all these related events, you start seeing things like the strings be pulled and all that stuff. And again, like in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people, they only focus on the people pulling the strings in these scenarios. Again, just to add context to this whole scenario, they only focus on the people pulling the strings. If there weren't people like this in our country, none of this stuff would happen.
Correct.
These ideologies have been allowed to fester as early as the 20th century and then begin to build up in our country. So if these ideologies weren't a thing, there wouldn't be people they could fund to go at these protests.
Right.
That wouldn't be possible.
Right.
You know, if we didn't have tens of millions of illegal immigrants in this country, same thing, this stuff couldn't be funded. You know, you wouldn't have people saying like they love Mexico and whatnot in the United States.
Correct.
Which in pretty much any other country is like an offense to be like instantly deported.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, other than Western countries. United States, Canada, and Europe is pretty much the only places that would not happen that you'd be instantly deported.
Right.
Only white countries.
Right.
Like, let's be really honest. Like majority white countries, that's the only place it happens. So there's this weird trend that you're like, okay, yes, there's people controlling and pulling the puppet strings 100%. But there's also an ideology problem at the ground level too. And a lot of people like to just only blame the people at the top trying to divide us. And it's like, it's not that simple. It's not as small as just 1,000 people pulling our strings. It's also the fact that these people are so low IQ, they believe these things.
Correct.
And actually rooted their beliefs in communism or in basically like anarchism or whatever you want to call it, whatever buzzword you want to use for it, or some other pagan religions, you know, anything outside of Christianity is pagan technically, you know? So it's like, these beliefs at the ground level are absolutely a problem as well. Because we're not also ignoring that we should behead people like Fauci, for example. Like 100%, Fauci should have been dealt with a long time ago.
Yeah,
and he still hasn't been. And that's a whole nother situation on top of itself. Same with all the Epstein people.
Yeah.
They should have been death penalty a long time ago at this point in time, of course. We're not saying to ignore these people at the top, but we're also saying that you at a ground level need to be having conversations with these people. Asking questions about world history and whatnot, world wars, Civil War, Revolutionary War, world wars around the country, and are we really a nation of immigrants? Are we actually a nation of conquerors and explorers and all this stuff along?
Which is what we are, by the way.
Which is exactly what we are.
Yeah,
exactly what we are. Now, we're not a nation of immigrants. We came in here and manhandled shit. Well, let's be completely honest. You're just bad at war. You lost. And then here we are.
That meme was so funny.
Oh, it was hilarious.
Oh, was somebody bad at war?
Wurtz sent me
the Always Sunny guys.
Always Sunny guy like crying and whatnot. Oh, was somebody bad at war? Because they were trying to say all of North America was Mexico at one point in time or something like that. Right. It's like, okay, well, let's say it was, and we whooped that ass then.
Yeah, right.
Big time.
Man, you suck at war.
You guys flushed that down the shitter big time. Man, your people suck.
Yeah, right. right.
No warfare ability whatsoever, other than if you're the Aztecs, just cutting people's heads off for sacrifice and whatnot. But hey, they were all just really nice people. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Definitely not pagan at all.
I just think, going back to kind of, because you just talked about a lot there.
Uh-huh.
So going back to at least one piece of it here. The piece that cracks me up is these people are here, right? Whether they're Mexican or Chinese or whatever, but in the LA one, the popular one you see is the Mexican flag being flown and cheered for, and you primarily see Mexican people, or at least Spanish people, participating in these riots, waving the Mexican flag, burning ours, which, by the way, burning the American flag as a U.S. citizen is treason. Like, it is considered treason.
Mm-hmm.
Same as burning money. It's the same thing. That's a crime. Like, it is. So that's happening. And it's like, okay, let's say they truly are protesting against the ICE raids and stuff. You chose to leave your country. Whether you're here illegally or legally, you chose to leave your country. And yet you are waving that flag and burning the one of the country you decided to come to. What sense does that make?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you and I went down to Mexico. We were waving the U.S. flag and burning the Mexican flag. I'm pretty certain we would be killed, jailed, and or immediately sent back. Like, immediately.
You're correct.
You know what I mean?
Another thing that was interesting, too, about that same conversation was that supposedly the Mexican economy, so Claudia Sheinbaum is the president of Mexico.
Right.
Not a Mexican at all, by the way, but not the point. But so she actually was, like, also encouraging this unrest to occur in the United States. So she was encouraging Mexican people to do this, for one.
Yeah.
And two,
didn't they like pass some kind of funding for it or something in Mexico?
That's a good question. I wouldn't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't quote me on that, but I feel like I remember seeing something about how she approved funding or transportation, or I don't know. There was something. Anyway, continue on. Go ahead.
She's an interesting character. There's a lot of question marks around her presidency too. But anyways, to talk on that, like, one, she was also encouraging this unrest, but she was also talking about how a lot of the Mexican economy is actually supported by people being in Mexico and sending money back to their families back in Mexico.
You mean being in the U.S.?
So, like, let's say Jose is working here in the United States. He then makes $500 on his paycheck this week or something like that, for example. He sends $300 of that back to his family.
Yeah.
They take taxes out of that back in Mexico, and then they make the money off it. We get none of it.
Right.
We don't earn anything from Jose's income coming in this scenario.
Correct. That's
she was saying that a lot of the Mexican economy, the deportations would be hurting the Mexican economy, actually. That's kind of the point, for one.
Exactly.
We don't give a shit about your economy.
Well, and also,
America,
these people being deported are criminals.
Correct.
So, yeah, I'm sure you don't want them back in your country, but that's not our problem to take them in.
It's also funny because there's always the argument about, like, well, there's good people that are here illegally. It's like, I'm not here to argue about whether or not they're good people. It's the fact that they broke the law.
Right.
Somebody can break the law and still be a good person, hypothetically.
Right.
For example. Because, like, obviously if somebody's, like, literally starving and they steal a fruit or something like that for their kid, they're probably not a bad person, for example. That's a very rare thing nowadays in the United States, for example.
But the point remains.
The context remains. So, like, I'm not saying these people are bad people, but again, because they broke the law, they then have to face consequences. Because if you do not face consequences for breaking a law, then you become a law of the society, which is anarchism, which sounds like a lot of these people want. There's literally a tweet that this dumb white bimbo was talking about something about how she doesn't believe in property, like the concept of property in general.
Just like in general.
And again, this is not a small percentage of the population. We're talking about like if you're, it's like 0.2%, or let's say it's 2% or 1% of the population or something like that. Well, that's also like, 5-10 million people plus. That's pretty concerning if somebody has that viewpoint, for example.
What does that even mean, to not believe in property? So if she buys a chair, she doesn't believe she owns it?
She doesn't believe she owns it, yeah. But then you'll tell that same person you should be housing immigrants then. Take them in to your house.
Yeah, right.
Or your apartment or wherever you're staying at or whatnot.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, property matters a lot.
As a matter of fact, here's 10 of them.
Exactly.
These guys all need homes.
Here's 10.
Yeah.
They're all military age. Majority of them are military age.
All dudes, too, by the way.
All dudes, yeah.
With you, woman, living by yourself.
Uh-huh.
What could go wrong?
No, nothing could go wrong.
You're being virtuous.
I don't know.
By
I don't know what
in.
you're insinuating, but
yeah, right, totally.
So
I roll very intended,
very, very intensely there. Yeah. But no, your point remains here is like it's very interesting because, like you're saying, all these riots do not occur in anywhere but these white majority countries.
Correct.
That is the truth of the matter.
You're talking European
you
countries.
You can only hate these countries. You can only hate being a German if you're in Germany.
Right.
But if you hate being in Afghanistan, they'll kill you.
Yeah.
Or they'll just deport you as it is, or whatever the hell it is. But all these other countries,
for being honest, more than likely kill you.
Probably.
Because you're not Muslim either.
Exactly.
So
it's the same thing as like the Taliban, for example, if they collaborated, like if there was citizens that collaborated of Afghanistan with the U.S. military, they would kill them.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Like same idea there, but again, like that's a very normal thing for a country to maintain its values that way in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying the Taliban are right in the scenario.
Right.
Obviously not. But it only happens here, and there's billions of dollars in damage caused. I mean, I think the number in Minneapolis got as high as like into the 20 billions or something. I believe it. Somewhere in that range. It might have been more than that. I don't know for sure. I'm not worried about pulling that up, but it was by far into the billions. It was a lot. It was a lot of damage. I mean, the George Floyd riots were a great example of that. So it's all these like weird. It's like they're trying to stir up minorities in this country in a lot of ways to like go against this, white oppressor villain or something like that they have in mind, the white man or whatever,
right?
Something like that. But again, they can only speak this freely in white countries.
Correct.
That's the only place they can do this at. So
Correct.
I'm like really confused how we're the villain. And I'm going to tell you right now, I talked to a lot of white dudes. We're getting fed up.
Absolutely.
And that's the last thing you want.
Right.
Considering we're also the most militarily capable group of people there is too.
Yeah.
As has been evidenced by all of our wins in the last 2,000 years.
Yeah. Right.
Plus at this point in time.
Right.
So it's just like, it's weird because it's like you're trying to push these buttons or stoke some kind of civil unrest in every way or something like that. And because now there's also protests, I don't know if you saw this, that are scheduled around the country, including in St. Louis, that are scheduled to be happening. I don't know. Of course, I'm sure some of these are obviously parts of these are peaceful. Let's just make that very clear. Obviously parts of these protests can be considered peaceful. I don't like the way they're doing this. This is mean. Peaceful. Okay, cool. But the minute you start flying other countries' flags and burning stuff and throwing rocks at cops and all this stuff,
right?
That's when all the rules go out the window.
Absolutely.
And then your protest is done at that point in time.
Yes.
So even if you are a peaceful protester, you need to be saying to these people, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you getting violent at these rallies?
Yeah.
That's the same thing that should happen at these BLM rallies. If they felt like they were oppressed or something like that in some way, let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk about it. Because we would have all been willing to come to the table in 2014 when that happened. Now we're so tired of it and fatigued of all that stuff.
Right.
We're not willing to come to the table at this point in time.
Right.
That's
because
what
that
people
time
are
has
realizing.
passed.
The time is so past at this point in time.
The actions being taken by that side have been so ridiculous that even adds to the time being passed.
You are correct. Yeah. And I think what really worries me is the fact that one, not only do I have a daughter on the way, and I have to be concerned about things like this in my own city that I grew up in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I have to be whenever Holly and I are out together, I'm on high alert in every single manner.
Sure.
Like it doesn't really matter where I am.
Right.
Like unless you're at a place like Summer Smash where they're stacked with law enforcement the whole time there.
Yeah, right.
And Peacemaker, Defense Group and all that stuff. Like when they're stacked with this stuff, security, that's a whole different story.
And also at an event like that, like there's not idiots there.
Exactly.
And there's not these people that are trying to do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Because there very well could be, because there's a ton of people everywhere.
Yep.
You know?
Now there might be a couple too excited people.
Well, of course, but
I remember you and I were laughing because I don't know if it was just me, but I remember I got like there was like a group behind us and they were like screaming. It's like so excited, and I'm like my eardrums are like about to burst, and I'm like guys, I get it, this is cool, but like be quiet, please. I feel like I'm gonna have to lose my eardrum right now. Oh my gosh! But
I'm trying to lose my eardrums from the speakers.
Yeah, I'm trying to lose it from T-Pain, not from
right,
you.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And we did.
Yes. Yeah. We probably, I mean, realistically, it could have been good to have those little plugs in.
No.
But
I've never worn those.
But it would be kind of soft to do that.
Like, bro, when we go to air shows, we're right on the runway, basically.
Yeah, it's cool.
And I'm not putting earplugs in.
But it's not like we're doing this every day. We're around loud noises every day.
I just don't tell you.
Okay.
But,
well, you shoot guns inside your house all day.
Well, if I shoot guns, like, obviously I got ears on. But,
obviously.
You know, I stand on runways every day behind the F-22s.
Well, you used to go down there all the time. At your previous employment.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So that's true. But, anyways, random
weird side task there.
About Summer Smash there. That was odd, guys. But your actual point, though, about the event differences is that's the only time I can really like feel comfortable in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like there's so many things where you don't know who's who and who believes what these days and whatnot, where it's like this very uncertain nature to things in a lot of ways. And I do think to this day, I think we still have a chance to reclaim this country. It just takes drastic action.
It does.
You know?
It does. And it has to not only drastic action, but what goes with that is speed of things happening, getting these people out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a place in our society. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
They need to go back to where they came from, and they need to stay there. And that country needs to deal with those people. It's not our problem to take that in. It just isn't.
Yep.
I don't care how bad the conditions are in your country. That's your country's fault.
Mm-hmm.
So then you, as a citizen of that country, do something about it.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean go to a different country and bring your problems there.
Uh-huh.
That's not what it means.
By the way, that goes the same for somebody with an Israeli flag and flying it all the time.
Of course.
Same thing. It goes for any other foreign country that we're talking about. Just so for those of you that are like, well, what about Israel? It's like, well, we also believe that's a foreign country because it is, and it should not have a place either.
Right.
You know, same thing. You know, if you love Israel more than you do the United States, go back to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
That's your spot you're going to live. You're going to have to go there and make that a better place.
Right.
But that's not our job to deal with that.
Or Ukraine or Russia.
Same thing.
Or Haiti or whatever.
Anywhere else. If you believe in that country more than here, because you can have ties. Like, oh, my family's like, we have ties to a certain degree to Germany. Our family, a majority of our family came from Germany.
Yes.
That's cool. But also, since our families have been here for so long at this point in time, I mean, 1700s, by the way.
Right.
At this point in time, like our ties are all the United States.
Exactly.
And that's it. So there is a bigger tie to it as well. And, you know, you could see how somebody that's, you know, got here in the 1930s or later or something like that, maybe doesn't have, you know, the same
I think
vigor about it, so to speak.
I think a better example is E.
Yeah.
We've talked about him several times in these types of instances, but because he talked about it on his episode with us. What's the number?
149.
There you go. So episode 149, we had our buddy E on, who came here when he was 15.
15, yep.
From Haiti. And he talked all about the process, of course, but he talked about how, yes, he's from Haiti, and he still wants to do good work for Haiti, and he still does do good work for Haiti, but he is here.
He also does work in North County and stuff like that.
And
too,
he's
here
an
in St. Louis.
American.
Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's a perfect example of, yes, in very, very recent history, you were in a different country, living there. You, to a certain degree, grew up in that other country, but you're no longer there. You don't see him flying the Haitian flag everywhere.
Exactly.
You just don't.
Yep.
You see him prideful about our country and the opportunities this country has provided for him. That is how it's done.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it also is like, you have to look at it too with immigration. With the illegal aspect of it, you have to go in there, clean sweep all of them out. 100%.
Yeah.
Like if you're not here legally, you have to be clean swept and then out, which they've been doing at least somewhat of a better job at this point in time. They're starting to pick up
like it.
Pace somewhat.
Yeah.
Somewhat. It's because like right now, I think we're on track for like 3.2 million total in 4 years.
Right. And there was over 20 brought in.
And there's only over 20 in just the Biden administration. That doesn't count everything 2005 up until the Biden administration.
Right.
I mean, maybe earlier than that too. So we got a lot of work to do. Let's just say that, you know, to speed up. And like, that's another thing too. Like you could deputize citizens within no time.
Yeah.
And you could send a bunch of citizens in that are very willing to do this,
right.
Pay them a little bit of a wage, and they would be very happy to remove these people from the country.
Correct.
You know? And with legal immigration, that has to be intelligent too. At this point in time, we let more legal immigrants in than any other country in the world does, you know? So that has to be limited as well, because at this point in time, that's even allowing people in. And then next thing you know, you're giving them favorable business loans, for example, not only to just citizens like legal immigrants, but also to non-citizens, aka illegal immigrants. And so you're giving these favorable business loans, you're giving these people a leg up when they get here. That's not, no. You come here from the ground up and you build yourself. That's the only option. You don't get favorable business loans to open your own businesses and whatnot in our society and whatnot. And also when you come here, I want you speaking clear English. I also want you to believe in every single value of the United States, even more so than a citizen that's been here. Because by the way, Wurtz and I and Mitchell don't have to prove our ability to love this country, considering our family's been here since the 1700s.
Right.
It's a little bit different,
buddy.
Like you're coming over here and we're already a developed country at this point in time. You have a little bit more to prove.
Yes.
At this point, like a lot more to prove for that matter. You know, so.
And this is, all of these reasons is why immigration is the top issue in our country.
100%.
It's as simple as that.
And again, you and I have talked about whether it's, you know, AI, whether it's the leadership in our country also, but then you always come back to immigration,
right? Because
immigration depends on if a society is on the same page, if there's the same values. There was actually another great tweet about this that I saw too, where this guy basically broke it down and he's like, look, democracy and voting are for societies with like almost identical values. Because if you really think about it, you're voting on things like, okay, you know, are we going to have school buses send the kids to summer camp this year or something like that? Or are we going to have the parents bring them? You're going to vote, like that's locally.
I was going to say at the local
very
level.
local level.
Yeah.
You know, at the federal level, you're going to vote on things like, okay, maybe we put a 10% tariff on this country. And then another side's like, maybe we put a 15, 20% tariff on this country or something. You talk on things that are very along the same lines. Okay, should we lower taxes this much or maybe not this much or et cetera?
Is there income taxes or not income taxes or personal property taxes or not personal? Like those types of things.
Exactly. You argue on things like that. You do not vote on issues like whether or not a 12-year-old can cut off his penis.
Correct.
That's not an issue that a society is voting on. That's literally ideological evil at that point in time.
And yet that's where we are.
Exactly. That's where we are. You don't vote on, and again, it's also weird to vote on like who can marry who too. Because it's like we have a like pretty big baseline throughout history, like men and women.
There's one way that works.
Yeah, like there's one, like that's kind of the whole point of marriage, is to protect the child too, and all that stuff. You know, like maybe I'm crazy for that. I don't know. But like throughout thousands of years of history, we're basically saying these issues are now the most important in our society.
Right.
And again, that's what happens when you bring in immigrants that don't share the values of our country.
Correct.
That's a big part of it. And they also change the culture of our country. There's a lot less respect in certain areas. Things are louder. You know, things don't smell as great. That type of thing. All of it. So all these things are in the realm of immigration that make a huge deal. Driving is also not as safe in a lot of ways too.
Well, and being places isn't as safe.
Being places isn't as safe either.
Yeah.
You also like feel awkward in certain places. And I think we know what we're talking about, like malls, for example.
Absolutely.
Are a great example of that. And it's very funny because again, if you say this, if you go to India wants to be Indians.
Yeah.
If you go to China, it's all Chinese. If you go to Japan, it's all Japanese people.
Yeah.
But somehow we have to be the melting pot, which by the way, a term coined back in like the 1920s in this country. There's a term coined then. So it was by some random dude who like tried to like subversively bring it up through into like major politics essentially. And obviously was very successful with it at this point in time because we were not a melting pot before that point in time.
Right.
For the 1920s, 1930s, we were not in any way a melting pot. It was a very homogeneous society. So immigration, 100%, you're right, is our top issue because of the ideology factor. Depends on, that's how democracy and voting functions very well with an ideologically sound country.
Yeah.
At that point in time, on the same page. If there wants to be a country with like little tranny kids and stuff like that, and they vote on that type of stuff, abortions, all that type of stuff, then they can have their own country like that.
It's called California.
You know, hey, should we kill kids at 6 months in the womb or should we kill kids at 3 months in the womb?
Right.
Which, by the way, I'd say we nuke that country anyways, but that's not the point.
Right.
You know? So
it's kind of the point.
And yeah, it is the point. It is. But I mean, Iceland's a great example. You know, they have a eugenics policy basically in place. If you find out a kid's Down syndrome, they have the lowest Down syndrome rate in the entire world because parents abort their children who have Down syndrome.
Yeah. Nobody knows that, by the way.
Nobody knows that.
No.
Nobody has any clue about Iceland that that's a thing at all. At all. So that's really scary. You know, that's what can happen when we are not ideologically sound as a country. You have literal eugenics occurring, which is already trying to be pushed up the way now. You know, just because you slept with the wrong dude. Because that's, again, 99% of abortions are somebody you just you're like, I didn't really want to get pregnant by that dude.
Yeah.
Well, you let him put his dick in you.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the thing that happens, when sex occurs.
Right.
Like babies are a very big possibility with that.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, call me crazy. So it's like, again, like all these ideological things get debated when we allow more of certain groups in, that type of stuff, and they start getting power and gaining power and pushing their ideology that they just came from their shithole country, but they're going to push those same ideologies that are now going to make our country a shithole. All this stuff. So 100% you're right. Immigration, number one on the table. And that literally means over anything. AI is a big deal, 100%. We're not denying other issues are a big deal.
Correct.
We're not denying global leaders need to be handled.
But a lot of those other problems in those other areas, whether it's AI or the economy or whatever else that we've talked about here, start with immigration. And that's kind of the point you're getting to here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those start from there and then trickle down. Because when you have all these different ideologies that you're talking about, these different cultures that you're talking about, and they're trying to come up with one solution, well, everyone thinks a different way. So then there is no standard for anything. And so that's when all of this other stuff goes by the wayside. And I don't know if people can't see it or they choose to not see it. I think it's honestly more of a choice to not see it because they don't want to be labeled as racist.
Yeah, at this point in time, because it's been so pushed throughout society that you will get labeled these things if you say something.
Right.
You'll get labeled anti-Semitic, racist, or just a piece of shit in general, or bigot or whatever.
It's like, sorry, we're just pointing out what's a pretty easy observation.
What's also been normal throughout history.
Yeah.
What's been normal throughout history. It was the same thing in Rome. Rome fell because they brought in a bunch, because their citizens just got apathetic. And so they were really lazy too. And they just brought in a bunch of, slave labor that ended up becoming citizens. And they were from other nations entirely. And then they took over. And then next thing you know, Rome fell.
Yeah.
So Rome's just one example. It's literally happened to any empire that's gotten too big and too bloated. Again, Great Britain, as much as we like to make fun of them because we beat their ass in the Revolutionary War and whatnot, they also had one of the greatest empires of all time. I mean, it's literally a little island, and they had the East India Trading Company with millions of soldiers, basically all a part of this one company. That wasn't even the British military at that point in time, going and bringing Christian values to places like India, where there was a lot of paganism being practiced there, and still is for that matter. They were also doing things like colonizing, which was also weird because you look at colonizing and you look at countries that weren't colonized and that are, and then you look at the state of them now and how they progressed differently and how they looked when they were colonized too. And it's like, okay, that's very interesting. Like that doesn't seem like a bad thing when it looks like a very, very set, very clean society. I mean, Rhodesia is a good example of that. What people call Zimbabwe nowadays. Rhodesia is that. That's another rabbit hole to look into too. So that's all these examples throughout thousands of years of human history now, to where we can look and be like, okay, what's the logical stance and position at this point in time that we should be taking? And it's strict immigration. It's also intelligent populations that are assimilated into the country legally at that point in time. And again, like you could always hear like the Christian aspect of things. Like Christians, we get very scared because we're supposed to love everybody and whatnot, all this stuff. It's also talked about in the Bible. Not only is it said that you should respect the foreigner around you. Yes, true, 100%. But it's also said that if your country is overrun by foreigners, then what happens is you are a cursed nation under God. So that really makes you start asking questions about the United States and Europe right now, because they were majority Christian nations, and look at the things that are happening, especially in the UK with the rape rates there.
Dude, the UK is a disaster.
It's a complete disaster because it's an advanced version of us because of the fact they lost so many men in World War II. That's my personal opinion. Because if you think about that, you killed off all the strong men.
Yeah.
So now all the pussies made all the laws, and then now they're there where they are now.
And made the kids.
And made the kids. Now. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And had the offspring. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We didn't have as many men die, so our decline has been slower.
Yeah.
Because of that.
There could be truth to that. It's an interesting...
Totally a hypothetical I have in my head.
It's an interesting idea, but I don't know if you guys see what's going on in the UK, but it really is. It's tragic, quite honestly. And it's terrifying as well. I don't have a daughter on the way, but I can understand where you're feeling, but I do have two sisters. So like, I do get it from that standpoint. It's the same idea, like you see women, well, maybe I shouldn't say you see it, but you see these videos and these tweets and
data,
firsthand accounts and data of what's going on over there, and it's terrifying. And that's why you said earlier, like when you're with Holly, like you're always on alert. You and I, like a part of Summer Smash was being at Ballpark Village, which is in the heart of downtown St. Louis. There was one point where it was just you and I. We were the only ones there. We were the only ones at Summer Smash.
we were the two people at the top of Ballpark Village.
T-Pain performed for just us two. But you and I were the only two together walking in this certain at this certain point of the night. We were outside because I think we were going back to our car or whatever. And there were a couple groups of people that walked by us. We had no idea what they were doing because they weren't a part of Summer Smash, and they weren't coming from the Cardinals game. But I think it was two groups of maybe 3 or 4, so small groups of just people that you don't want to be around. You certainly wouldn't want your fiance around. And you and I, like, we could both feel each other. Like, all right, we're on alert right now. You know, like they could be a non-threat, but just observing these people, the way they're behaving, the way they're talking, the way they look, the way they smell.
They're very unaware of other people in the middle of the walkway too.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah,
you know, they almost hit both of us.
Yeah, right.
You know, they almost ran right into both of us, for example. Like little things like that. You just notice things like that, and you're 100%.
It's that.
Which, by the way, you're an idiot if you don't do that downtown St. Louis.
Yeah,
if you don't recognize patterns in downtown St. Louis, you are a little retard.
Well, and you're the one that gets killed.
100%.
Or raped, or taken.
Or you walk home or something like that by yourself as a man or a woman.
Right.
Because I've heard stories about what happened to couple men who have walked home by themselves. Here.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
No, I know exactly one of the stories you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
So, and especially when you're drinking and stuff, like, be aware.
Yeah.
Be aware.
You have to. And again, like, that's not us, like, excusing evil. We're just acknowledging the fact that it's a real thing in this world.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And because you could combine crime policy and immigration policy into one. You know, because again, you're breaking the law with immigration, illegal immigrating, you know, so you have to be strict with that, but you also have to be strict with how you handle criminals.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not for deportations of violent illegal aliens. I'm for executions of violent illegal aliens.
Yeah.
That's what I'm for.
Right.
I'm not for sending them back to their country.
Right.
They just shouldn't be on Earth.
Yeah.
That's just the truth.
Well, and that sets the tone pretty quick.
Real quick.
Pretty quick.
Because again, if you're a serious country, that's what happens. If you're a serious country, Fauci would have already been tried at this point in time and hung. You know, if you're a serious country, criminals that do heinous things like that would be made a public spectacle of. Any self-respecting society that had law and order does that throughout history.
Right.
And then the ones that don't fall, like Rome, like the UK, you know? So the policies line up with each other, and it's just like, it's being strong and being harsh and ignoring people's opinions, especially, by the way, leftist women. Yes. Leftist women are the ones that squawk the loudest out of all the groups. And then men are like, oh, I don't want to say anything because then they won't like me.
Yeah.
You know, they might not like me at all.
Right.
It's like, first of all, you're gay. Two, man up again, because that's not, you're the leader. You're the leader. Them saying that does not dissuade you from going and having a harsh criminal policy. Yeah. That was mean what you did to him. You might think that.
I don't really care.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because I actually said that on one of Will's posts that we were talking about, like there was some squawking leftist lady on there, of course, as he usually has.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah,
Will Bates, guys. Will Be Inspired on Instagram. Go follow him. But it was one of his posts, and I said, like, we will only go forward. I commented on it. I said, we will only go forward if we start ignoring people like this and their opinions in society. Yeah. And at first he took it, I think because it's hard to tell context over social media. Of
course.
He thought I was meaning like, just ignore these people and just kind of like do our own thing. And I was like, no, Will, I mean, like, literally, we do these things we're going to do, the policies, the immigration policies, the crime policies, and we ignore their opinions.
Correct.
Their opinions do not matter or factor into our policy decisions we make.
Because it's only rooted in virtue signaling and emotion.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Nailed
which
it.
Gets nothing done.
You nailed that.
Just like what we were talking about earlier. Oh, you want to keep the illegal people here? Okay, then house them. Feed them. Clean for them. All this stuff. But
I'm not using my tax dollars to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you that right now.
Right.
You can take it out of your paycheck.
Exactly.
From your little stupid HR desk job you have going on
or
right
the
now.
coffee shop or something.
Or the coffee shop you're working at. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
And you're barely getting by with your rent or whatever, and then you're expecting to talk on policy.
But you wanted to live in New York City. So you could say you live in New York City. Congratulations.
I just can't imagine living in a place like that. New York's cool to visit.
which sucks because
Yeah.
New York City, LA, like these places are iconic cities.
The Big Apple.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Iconic cities for the world, not even just for the country.
Think how many things, New York might be the world's greatest city. Think how many
Right.
things that city has created
Yeah,
and built.
dude.
And so like Madison Square Garden's a great example. Most
Exactly.
famous stadium in the world.
Yeah.
You know?
New York Yankees.
I mean-
like, are you kidding me? You know what I
New York,
mean?
That's a great point.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's just sports. We're not even talking about all the different types of food and
the architecture.
and
Yeah.
the history.
The Freedom Tower is a great example.
Yeah,
It's like, oh my
right.
God, how did somebody build this? You
Exactly.
know, you see it in person. I've seen it in
Statue
person
of
once.
Liberty.
Statue of Liberty.
Like,
Yeah.
come on.
That's 100%.
But here we are sitting like, I wouldn't want to go there.
Yeah, because a lot of now, and you and I both heard this too. A lot of dudes are like, I'm just going to get a farm and go disappear. Right? That's not the option. That's not the option. This is our nation.
Yeah.
This is our nation.
Right.
We will also go back into the cities and take them.
Yeah.
Also, you need to make sure your local areas in the counties or wherever you are, or whether you live in the city or not, or something like that, are dialed in.
Yeah.
But 100%, we don't just let the cities burn.
Right.
Think how much history is in even St. Louis.
Absolutely, dude.
100%.
Absolutely.
I mean, you think we're just going to let it fall?
Yeah.
No. That's not a part of this.
Right.
You don't just disappear into the woods and everything becomes fine.
Right.
Because eventually they'll come to you too.
Yeah. Right.
You know, we see populations moving farther and farther out,
Yeah.
outside of the city of St. Louis and whatnot too. And crime rates going up in certain populations outside that are, again, 30 minutes from downtown St. Louis. And you're
Yeah.
like, how the hell has this happened?
Right.
The problems aren't going to go away, even if you move to a farm.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. All right. Let's take a breath for a second there.
Sorry.
Well, guys, that is the main portion here of episode 162. Now, at the end of all of our non-guest episodes, Money Mitch over here will ask us a Q&A question that's submitted by you guys, the viewers or the listeners. We have a few different ways that we would like you to submit these questions to us. Number one, you can DM them to us on Instagram at untapped.llp. We had a funny question at Summer Smash about why is it .llp, not just Untapped.
Did somebody ask you that?
They asked both of us. Yeah.
Who-
Yeah. Might have been Richie, possibly. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. But anyway.
I thought it was. I might have been just you that heard this, but anyways, doesn't
So
matter.
someone asked us why the .llp, like what is that? What does that stand for?
Oh, yeah.
And we said, well, it just stands for limited liability partnership. It's just like the official business because Untapped, the handle Untapped is taken by some bot account that literally had, I think,
Yeah.
zero
No.
followers with zero
You know,
posts.
I know who it was. It was Tanner. Tanner
Oh,
Reed.
yeah, you're right.
Our,
You're right,
our
you're
boy
right.
Tanner Reed. Shout
Yeah.
out him. He does roofing around the area in St. Louis.
Definitely.
Has a really great mission there.
Yeah.
Just shout
And
him out.
huge supporter of the show
Huge
and of
supporter of
us.
the show.
So,
Yeah.
yes, you're right. It was Tanner. But anyway, that's why the LLP is because the name Untapped is taken by a bot account.
Bot account.
Yeah. So
Mm.
we need to work on that. But anyway, you can DM them to us on Instagram there. You can DM them to us individually. You can text us individually if you have our numbers. You can email them to us. Our email is extricationfitness@gmail.com. Or you can leave them in the comments on any of our social media posts, which we are on Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube. So you can leave them in the comments anywhere on those 4 platforms. All of these questions get sent over to Money Mitch. He will then pick one out. See, I always do this. I always second guess myself. He picks one out that pertains to the episode the topic of the episode. Slow down here, Wurtzy.
We might just have to pre-record this one time with you and just put it in. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No. Oh, live only here, baby. Come on now. He picks one out that pertains to the topic of the episode or a past episode or can be literally about anything. We get a lot of supplement related ones. So they can certainly be, health and fitness, supplements, but these questions can be about anything. They can be funny. We love the funny ones. So submit those to us. They go to Money Mitch. He picks one out and then he has his time to shine in the episode. It's his big moment. Money Mitch.
Is it unconstitutional?
No.
Interesting. Is it unconstitutional that President Trump deployed 700 Marines to assist in the LA riots currently going on?
Oh, I stick with my answer. Because he also deployed National Guard.
Yes, but National Guard and Marines are active duty Marines are, I'd say, a significant step up.
It is.
Than National
It is.
Guard.
Yeah. Unconstitutional, though, is the word.
Mhm.
To my knowledge, there's nowhere in the Constitution that says that can't happen.
Yeah. It's technically like the state and federal like differences and
Correct.
whatnot and all that stuff, but I don't know anywhere in the Constitution that says, oh yeah, you can just let your city burn.
Yeah, right.
With
right.
like Karen Bass and what's his name? New Homo.
Yeah.
Are doing up there in California.
And Maxime Water Homo as well. It works.
Maxine Bimbo. I was gonna go with that. That's probably better.
We use that though.
Yeah. That's true.
You know, I will say that is technically the point of the National Guard is to protect the homeland. While like here, you know, obviously like our military is protecting the homeland, but they're typically doing that internationally somewhere. Point of the National Guard is to protect it domestically. So unconstitutional. I don't know if it's technically unconstitutional.
Well, and let's clarify, we're not Constitution experts here.
Well, correct. Correct. But to me, it is the point of the National Guard, which is why you have that, is for these instances. I mean, we were talking about the Ferguson riots, like the Missouri National Guard was deployed for that. When
I know some studs who were in that too. Yeah.
I want to say, was it Trump's inauguration the first time the National Guard was deployed there?
DC's was?
Yeah, just as like
precautionary.
Yeah, just like additional security type thing.
Yeah. Which I believe for like events like that is very common.
Yeah.
I would imagine like leaders summits, like things like that are deployed.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't see an issue for that for a presidential inauguration. Like that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, millions of people could show up. So why not have extra security? You know, something a small summer smash, they brought in extra security for that for those 3 days. We saw it. You know, and those dudes, like, you don't want to mess with those dudes who they had out there. Like, this wasn't your average cop that's pulling you over for going 10 over. Yep. You know? So I don't know. I don't know if it's unconstitutional or not, but what's the point of the National Guard if we're going to bring in Marines?
Well, I guess, yeah, that's a good question, because I don't know if Newsom has limited their capacities or what's going on with the National Guard exactly, and that's probably behind the scenes of what's happening.
Who's Newsom? That was New Homo. Gavin New Homo. Excuse me. Apologies. Yeah, dude. Get his name right.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he's limited their capacity in some way. National Guard, California National Guard, I'd imagine. So they're not able to actually intervene how they should be intervening right now.
Right.
But to be frank about this, from what I understand, no, it's not unconstitutional to bring in 700 Marines. From what I understand, because like that is one of the excuse me, what do you call it? One of the functions of the federal government is to activate the military, for example. They obviously, for those of you that took any constitutional based class and whatnot, you know that the federal government is to provide that military protection to a certain degree. And then outside of that, they're pretty much able to provide the leadership at a federal level. And that's supposed to be it. And obviously that's not the case nowadays, as we've shirked a lot of the Constitution. So I would say 100%, because it's all threats, foreign and domestic.
Dude, that's crazy. I was literally just about to say part of the oath that the military takes is to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
So that's where my head goes no.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Well, right now that's what they're doing.
It's a domestic threat in the city.
It is.
And who knows, it might be a lot of foreigners that are not also also here, as we know, you know, openly admitting they're illegal. It's like, okay, deport.
Yeah. See
you, buddy. You're gone. And like an umpire.
Yeah. Aaron Boone style.
Yeah.
Aaron Boone injection
let's
style.
Go. Oh yeah. Didn't deserve it.
You're having a piece of shit start to this game. I feel bad for you.
That's
such
awesome.
a good ejection.
Oh man, such a polite ejection. Yeah.
Oh,
which partially not.
There was no politeness.
They were screaming in each other's face. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
But anyways, so obviously the no is the hypothetical here because of all the threats, foreign and domestic. Also, I want to say on that end of things too, I don't really care whether or not the leftists call it unconstitutional because they've also taken our gun rights now for over 100 years. So they obviously do not care about the Constitution because it says the right to bear arms in general.
Correct.
You know, so, and again,
it's actually the second line.
You could argue all these little different things, but like anybody that actually is a 2A lawyer understands that it means everything. Yeah. It means the same capability and capacity as the military is what we're supposed to have. So I don't really want to hear the constitutional thing because they've shirked the Constitution with that. They've also shirked it with just the COVID stuff in general. Like that's a great example of them being like, oh no, you got to put on a mask. It's like, I don't think that's constitutional. There's definitely nothing that says, hey, if there's a there's an illness with 99.9% survival rate, you can just tell everybody to put on masks. There's definitely not that in the Constitution.
Yeah.
So I don't
unless
really,
we missed that line.
Unless we totally could have. Yeah.
Maybe we were sick that day for history class.
Could have been.
We just missed that lesson.
Definitely. Yeah. For sure. But so truthfully, I don't really feel bad. Like I don't listen to these complaints from them. I say we just do it. It's the same thing as the action thing I was talking about.
Right.
It's like what a retarded opinion to be like, oh yeah, it's unconstitutional to do this, but then it's okay to cause billions of dollars of damage in a city.
Exactly.
That's totally cool though.
Right.
Like let's just let anarchy happen. Like that's an idiotic opinion.
Let's go back to the Wild West.
Like yeah, that's base. I mean, with the Wild
West,
that's
if we did,
high trust society.
Watch what happens.
High trust society, but. Yeah, the people would be handled in the Wild Wild West in the proper way because again, it's a high trust society. Nowadays, we did that, we'd have the purge essentially.
Well, and there was public hangings and stuff because
exactly.
And stuff didn't happen.
Exactly.
People open carried. Everyone open carried.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like it is awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like, maybe we should go back to Wild West. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but again, like go back to Wild West with the demographics back then. But
yes,
anyways, but
I'd be a really good Arthur Morgan. Don't you think, Mitch?
I don't know if Mitchell agrees with that one.
No? Who would I be?
Arthur, yeah.
You'd be the uncle.
I mean, that's
uncle. Oh my.
I thought maybe he was going to say that what's that one inbred family scene?
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it is. That's wild.
I
can't believe you just said I'd be the uncle.
I don't actually know the uncle in Red Dead, to be honest with you.
Screw you, Mitchell. I'm turning my back to you.
I was going to say like it'd take a special type of man to be an Arthur Morgan, I'll tell you that right now. That's a badass right there.
Yeah.
But no, I just there's also the aspect of like no, from what our understanding is, like obviously it's not unconstitutional, but there's also the end of like I'm so tired of like caring about these people and like like actually listening to their opinions.
Yeah.
And hearing them screech about everything and whatnot. Like,
well,
like you can call it unconstitutional all you want, we're still going to do it.
Well, and also just like tired of the country being on fire, literally and figuratively.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that this stuff is being broadcast to the world, and those people in other countries are thinking, "Wow, there's more fires and riots and civil unrest going on in the United States."
Why is the United States such a shithole? And we listen to this country?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Though. Yeah. It's really disappointing. So, all right, guys, that is episode 162. We ask that you please share the show. It is free. It's very easy for you to do, and it helps us tremendously. So, guys, please share the show. A lot of you do that, and it means the world to us. We know who you are, by the way, those of you that are consistently supporting the show and supporting our reels and clips and things like that we post on social media. And that does not go unnoticed, guys. So
no, we 100% talk about that.
Yes.
Whenever it happens, whether it's through text or in person,
absolutely,
we always talk about the people that support the show.
And I mean,
100%.
heck, I know we've mentioned Summer Smash probably more than what you guys care about, but like we had multiple people come up to us throughout the weekend, like, "Hey, I'm a listener. Like, can we get a picture?" And that type of, like, it's awesome. Like, it's awesome. Exactly. That means a lot.
You guys have a podcast, right? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. And the person that said that is going to be a
guest. That's just one of the people,
right?
Too, but like, that's also
big upcoming guest for you guys too as well. We have a couple that we're working on here. So anyway, please continue sharing the show, and guys, until next time, peace and love.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.